Welcome to the Cardinals Locker Room Show, presented by Santan Ford & Gilbert, home of the Tim Hovick Satisfaction Guarantee.
Come on, man! Come on!
Let's get back to the stadium for analysis and exclusive interviews from the Cardinals locker room. Here's Dave Pasch, A.Q. Shipley, and Paul Calvisi.
Well, the Arizona Cardinals defense did a decent job today. They were up 10-3. Bijan Robinson was kept in check early on, but he had a big catch on a short drive where he was the guy that touched the ball on 3 plays, all the 3 plays of a scoring drive. That kind of unlocked him and the Atlanta offense. They eventually scored 26 points. They were held to about 350 yards of offense, and 19 of their 32 rushes went for 3 or fewer yards. We saw Darius Robinson have a great game. Dalvin Tomlinson was in there. Meanwhile, the offense struggled. Just 19 points for the Cardinals. Brissett had a pick, had a touchdown pass. Not enough Michael Wilson, Trey McBride, or Marvin Harrison. They combined for 7 catches between the 3. Michael Carter had 65 rushing yards, most of those in the first half. And Kiner did a good job when he was in there. We didn't see him in the second half. Saw him in there for a possession early in the game, got 32 rushing yards. But the Cardinals end up losing 26-19. And they're now 3-12. They have 2 games left at Cincinnati, at the Rams. AQ, as you look big picture at what we saw here today, what were your takeaways from this game?
I think the biggest thing is if you look from a week ago, Kyle Pitts dominated the game. I think Kirk Cousins looked great. He threw for a bunch of yards last week. They get Drake London back today. He's been a pretty electric football player in this league for his entire time in the NFL now. And you get all those guys back, and we did a good job on defense limiting all of them. I think limiting all of them. But the big thing was once they got into the red zone, they scored touchdowns when it mattered most. Obviously, the pass to Kyle Pitts on the little crossing route, you get the touchdown down here on the run on the quarterback sneak. There's just too many times where they get one more touchdown, and we had plenty of opportunities getting down into the red zone. You think back on the missed field goals. You think back on just some of the plays that we missed out on today on offense, and then what they did to capitalize on their end.
Yeah, it was 13-3. They took the lead, but missed an extra point. So it was actually tied 16-16 at half. The Cardinals don't score after that. Elijah Higgins had a big day in defeat, and he's standing by with Paul.
7 grabs for 91 yards, career highs. We'll get to that in a moment. Very quiet locker room right now. What sticks with you the most, Elijah?
Just the pain in the locker room. It's hurt. We work our tails off every week, and we go into the game with a lot of belief that we're going to win. And it sucks when obviously that doesn't happen. One thing about our team, I know that we're going to stick together and continue to battle the next 2 weeks.
And guys talk about that confidence. What gives this roster confidence at this point in the season?
I think just the way that we approach work, the way we approach our craft. Guys are working hard, we're competing every week, and just sticking to the process, tweaking the process, just trying to do better every week, and I think that's how you go into games with confidence.
What would you like about how this offense was able to move the ball, especially in the first half?
I think we did a good job. Obviously, we didn't put enough points on the board, but it was cool to see our run game get going, and obviously we had some explosive passes in the game. So, yeah, just still not enough to get it done.
Yeah, at halftime, the Cardinals' run game was averaging nearly 6 yards a carry. What does that do for the pass game?
I think obviously it opens it up. You get them to load the box up a little bit, and you're able to stretch the field a little bit more. But obviously, like I said earlier, we didn't do enough to get it done.
Do you have an inkling coming in that you might get all these targets, all these opportunities, 7 grabs, 91 yards receiving? Do you ever have a gut feel going into a game like this?
No, I try to approach every game the same. Try to stick to my process, my routine, and just trust in that, and just continue to stay ready for the opportunity and just make the most of it when I can.
What's your mentality once you catch the ball? You had a lot of yards after catch. Like, for example, last week, Trey had 97 of his 134 after the catch. What are you telling yourself once you get the ball in your mitts?
The first thing is protect the ball. Obviously, that's the most important thing. And then after that, just trying not to get tackled by the first guy and just trying to run hard, just play physical. Yeah.
Jacoby Brissett told the media this week he can sense, he can hear, literally hear the defense shouting out 85 all the time. Obviously, they're giving him a lot of attention. They give Michael Wilson a lot of attention. What does that do to a defense, and how, what sort of opportunities does that create for other guys?
And we have a lot of dudes, a lot of skilled players on our team. Marv, Mike, Weave, guys that got injured, Zay. And we have a plethora of guys that can make plays all over the field, and obviously when you double certain guys on the team, it allows opportunities for everybody else, and if you make the most opportunities, you can do well for yourself.
Brissett also mentioned how often you come back to the sideline, look at the tablet, and say, you know what, that had nothing to do with the defense, that was on us. To what degree is this one of those games where you feel like, man, there were opportunities out there?
Yeah, I mean, that's every game, right? That's every game. I wish I would have broke a few more tackles. There was a couple plays that I had where I felt like I could have scored, and obviously that would have changed the game around. But that goes for every player. I mean, you're never going to play a perfect game, and you just have to try to minimize the mistakes, and just decrease the margin for error.
Late third quarter, though, you had the 3rd and 8. Cardinals had the ball at the 50. You had the 25-yarder. Take us through that play call. Do you remember that in particular, and what enabled that to go for big yards?
I think everybody's just doing their job. All 11 guys on the field doing their job, and just executing the play. And I think that's what it comes down to.
Last question for Elijah Higgins. So many injuries. Cardinals lead the NFL in virtually every category, and you're watching guys get carted off. I think a lot of fans wonder, how tough is that mentally? You know the costs that potentially can come with playing this game, but how tough is that to mentally cope with in the moment?
I mean, it's emotional for sure, especially when you see your brothers go down, and it's tough. It's tough, but I think that's opportunity to reflect, and just be thankful for the opportunity to play the game. You never know. Obviously, you never know what the future holds, and you just have to take every play like it's your last, and just enjoy the moment with your guys, because obviously things can happen, and it's tough. It's the nature of the game. We know what we signed up for, but yeah.
We called your name a lot. Thank you for the time and insight. Appreciate it.
Brother. Thank you so much.
Okay. There you go, Elijah Higgins, guys.
Yeah, 7 catches, 91 yards, a career high. His longest was 25. The Cardinals Locker Room Show presented by Tim Hovick, Santan Ford and Gilbert. Right on the price, right on the corner of the Santan 202 Freeway and Val Vista. How much of the game that Elijah Higgins had to do with what the defense was doing to Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison, and Michael Wilson?
Well, the funny thing is a lot of his big plays today came on big blitzes by Atlanta. So they made it look like he was staying in to block, which he does. He shows like he's going to block. And then, boom, once the blitz triggers, you chip, you get out, you leak out, and they lose them in coverage. And that was probably a big part of the game plan today. They know that they blitz a lot. Hey, let's make it look like we're going to go 7-man protection, but then we're going to leak this guy out.
He had a great day, and unfortunately the Cardinals didn't have enough. Again, they were up 13-3 at one point, then they trailed 26-16. They got a field goal late. They had a chance, down 7 with possession, 2 minutes to go. But a great play by Henderson, intercepting Jacoby Brissett, for all intents and purposes, ends the game. The Cardinals lose 26-19. In terms of what Paul talked about with Elijah Higgins at the end there, the injuries, Garrett Williams, Walter Nolan. Don't know that we're going to know anything more from Jonathan Gannon, because we know that both guys were carted off, one with an Achilles, that's Williams, and then Walter Nolan with a knee injury. As a player, this again was just, as I'm thinking about it, watching how devastated these guys are, does it, when you're hurt this late in the season, does that add to the devastation knowing it could cost you next year?
Absolutely. I mean, I remember specifically it was the red and white scrimmage in August whenever I tore my knee, and I remember being devastated. I mean, I knew my knee was done. I knew my season was over, and I remember getting a phone call from Carson Palmer on the drive home. My wife, she couldn't say anything right on that way home. I was so mad. The world was ending. The walls were closing in on me. And Carson talked to me, who'd been through some injuries, and he was like, you have to take every silver lining that comes with this injury. Hey, what leg is it? It's my left leg. Okay, well, at least you'll be able to drive with your right leg. And then it was like, hey, it happened in August. You'll be back next September, like for the season. So there's all these silver linings you have to try and find. When it happens in December like this, it's either one of two things. You're just mentally coming to grips with the fact that it's going to be December, November before you can even start wrapping your head around playing again, or you have to tell yourself that I'm going to be the most motivated person and be the first person to come back in 7 months or 6 months.
And if not, and again, it could, depending on how next season is going, come down to an organizational decision. If those are, and again, I know we're not supposed to speculate on injuries, but just based on the fact 2 guys are carted off, it is December 21st, that if it's something where it's late in the year, it is an injury that is something that takes that long to come back from. And if things aren't going well, the organization may make the decision, hey, it's not worth it at this point. And that's something as a player I got to imagine you got to live with, because it's not just all about that. There is the fact, outside factors in terms of, medically, what do the doctors say, but also what does the organization think. And unfortunately for Walter Nolan, that one, I think, of all the things that have happened the last 2 months of the year, that one may rival the fact that they're losing. Just the losses, I think the Nolan injury is right there, because it looked like he got something with him.
He looks to be special, but, I mean, this is just another setback, right? Like, we were sitting there, and all we kept hearing was how great this kid was going to be, right? And then he gets his first game against Dallas, and he showed exactly what we had heard. And then he gets a setback, and he pulls some games back where he's injured and misses some games, but then he comes back, and it's like, oh, there he is again. He shows up again, and then he shows up again in the next game, and then the next game. And then all of a sudden this happens, and you start to wonder, and it's like, okay, well, you basically lost most of this season, and if, God forbid, he ends up losing next season, now you don't see him until year 3, and this is supposed to be a generational type talent. It just, you hate to see it.
Jacoby Brissett played well. He was under duress for a good part of the game. Again, the interception, hard to say that's on him. It's not like it was a bad read. I mean, it wasn't a great throw, but it was just a great play. But overall, assess what you saw from Brissett today.
You didn't get to see much of him. I mean, I remember during the broadcast, I remember you saying, oh, he's only thrown the ball 10 times at some point in the second half, and it was partly because the run game got going today. And I think that's one thing that we can take a positive from this game. I thought the run game looked pretty good against a young, talented defense, and there were some big holes, there were some big runs, we generated some explosives in the run game, which we really haven't seen very much this year. But having said that, I think they leaned a little too much on that run game today. I think they kept going back to it. And again, if you go there, you go there, you go there, and then you're stuck at 3rd and 7, well, then you don't get it. Now all of a sudden you're either kicking a field goal, which we missed, or you're punting the ball. And, far too often we're sitting there looking at the scoreboard saying, oh, it's another one-score game. And it's, I think far too much with this offense leans on, just hanging around and hoping to win it at the end of the game, as opposed to being the aggressor and going out and taking the game.
Chad Ryland missed a couple field goals. He did make a 34-yarder late, but at the rate that he's been missing field goals, as a guy that was once a high draft pick that got released because he was having trouble with accuracy, you start to wonder about what's going on in his head. And it may not matter for the next 2 games, but it does matter for next year as you're trying to figure out, okay, we believed in him enough after what we saw last year to make him our kicker this year. Have we seen enough at the end of this year to keep him next year? That will be a decision the Cardinals have to make.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I think kicker's one of the most finicky positions on a roster, because you look at a guy like Jake Moody, who was another guy who was drafted super high out in San Francisco, and then eventually it became time where, okay, we got to pull the plug at some point, because this just isn't going to work. And kicker's the most equatable position to a golfer, and it's all between your ears. It's all mental, right? I mean, all these guys can kick it a mile. They all have the talent. They were drafted or they weren't drafted, and they get into a camp and prove that they should be here. But the minute that you start to question just a little bit, it's no different than getting the yips in golf. And, you hope that's not the case. But when you start to see more misses than you see makes at some point, now you start to question yourself. And once you question yourself as a kicker and you lose your confidence, it's a wrap.
3 different holders this year. You wonder if that was impactful at all for Chad Ryland. But that's, again, something the Cardinals will have to address in the offseason, along with the obvious, the quarterback. And you mentioned Jacoby Brissett. Given the situation, the circumstances, the overall context, hard to ask much more from Jacoby Brissett. What we've seen from Brissett is what the Colts saw. It's what the Patriots saw. He's been the same guy. He's a very valuable backup. The question is, will he continue to be the backup once next season starts? And if that's the case, who's the starter? Is it Kyler Murray? Is it somebody else? You got 2 more games to get a look at Jacoby Brissett. I would imagine that he will continue to be the quarterback. I don't think they need to see Keaton Slovis. I think they know what they have there. My guess is Brissett plays the final 2 games, and then that's, again, an organizational discussion about the next step. But in terms of the worth of Jacoby Brissett and what he's provided to this team, he's been everything that the Cardinals thought he would be, and it's nice to have that because there are a lot of players on this roster that I think the Cardinals thought they had one thing and maybe they found out they had something else. Not the case with Brissett.
It's always great to have a borderline fringe starter, if you will, and I think that's what Jacoby Brissett is. I think he's capable of winning games and being a starting quarterback in this league. I'm not so sure he's capable of being your franchise leader, and that is part of the reason why he is who he is and why he's been where he's at his entire career. He's just been kind of slotted in this role of he's better than most backups, if not all backups, but is he good enough to be your everyday starter? And he's been very good. The reason they're losing games is certainly not falling on his shoulders. And it's great to have this problem. It's great to have that guy that whenever you need him, he can step in and win you games. But, I think the reality is this. The reality is what this team has put on tape from top to bottom has not been good enough this year, and they're clearly going to need to make some moves this offseason. And the reality is you got to find a way to go get your guy who's going to be your guy for the next 10 to 15, 20 years, because those are the teams that have stability, they have consistency. You look at Josh Allen, he's lost 4 or 5 different coordinators over his time, but he's that talented, and he continues with guys that aren't maybe as good around him to hold that team together, right? And, same with Mahomes. Maybe not the most talented team every year, but you got that guy. And so that stability and that consistency you got to find and start there. And then you got to build the team around it. You got to build an offensive line. You got to build the defensive line. Start with the most important spots and go build a team, because this team's got a lot of holes right now, and they're going to need to find a way to fix them.
You mentioned in the pregame show you really liked what you saw from John Gaines last week. I'm sure watching the film you'll be able to learn more, but what did you think about him and the other young offensive linemen in this game?
I thought the group up front played pretty well today. I really did. I mean, there was a couple times where they get stuck in some bad situations in terms of play action, trying to create chunks and explosives down the field, which then, you try and limit those opportunities to 4 or 5 a game, but in those 4 or 5 moments, you got to hold up. And you're going to have to hold up just a little bit longer and fight just a little bit longer on those plays. But for the most part, the protection was pretty solid. There was a couple third down plays where they got into some jams and maybe gave up a sack or a pressure or a hit, but the run game was vastly different than it's been all year, so I think that's a win. Their 6-0 line package has been good in the run game and in the play action game, so I'll be curious to see what the film looks like.
Atlanta 26, Arizona 19. Jonathan Gannon has finished his press conference. We are standing by for his interview with Paul Calvisi, and he's ready. Let's go to Paul.
All right, Coach, let's start with the very end of the game. You get the 4th down stop, right? 4th and 1 to the 39. Cardinals hold. You get the ball back just over 2 minutes to go. And what are you thinking at that point? And, where ultimately do you think you came up short on that last drive?
Yeah, I think, we're thinking to go score and tie the game and either go for 2 to win the game or tie it and go to overtime. Takes all 11. They made a play. Hats off to them. But, execution down the stretch there, it takes 11 guys.
Was there anything in that second half that kept the offense from kind of regaining some of the rhythm it had in the first half?
Yeah, I don't know. I know we had the 3-and-out punt, and then we had a field goal. We had a missed field goal, so the 1 3-and-out was tough. But they weren't on a field a ton. I thought Atlanta controlled the ball. We didn't get as many plays off as you'd want there. Not as many. It was a low possession game, but I thought the offense battled, man.
Yeah, in terms of getting the ball to Michael Wilson and Trey McBride, is that getting tougher week by week? Was there anything in particular they were doing?
Yeah, they definitely had a good plan for Trey. You know what I mean? And he, didn't have as many targets and catches as he normally does. But I thought, when you do that, then you got space and zones and different people on, our different guys. I thought Higgins stepped up, played well. I thought he had kind of a career day, converted some third downs, had some explosives, so that was good to see. teams are going to be aware of 85. There's no doubt.
Yeah. Elijah Higgins, I mean, his yards after catch really stood out as well, right?
Yeah, he's a good run after catch guy, man. He battled his butt off today.
Speaking of the run game, 95 yards rushing in the first half. What did you think of the efficiency overall? You got some of the explosives you were looking for?
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was good. You know, some of the stuff that was going to the perimeter on gap schemes, they knocked back a couple of times, but I thought our downhill run game looked pretty good. I thought Mike ran it pretty good. Amari at the end of the half there popped the one. Now we had a chance to kick a field goal. We ended up missing, but you know, I thought we did a good job with it.
In terms of the O-line, and especially against Atlanta defensive front, a lot of guys talked about how multiple they are, right? And they'll bring a variety of different blitzes. Did you see a lot of that today?
Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, yeah. I mean, like I said, they made it hard to get the ball to the perimeter, but I thought we did a good job of moving them interiorly in the inside there and getting some movement and generating some good runs there.
Mode of play, what'd you think? Especially when it goes fourth quarter, you get a couple of fourth down stops.
Yeah, I thought it was good, man. They battled all the way to the end. You know, we ultimately came up short, and you feel terrible and you're down, but we're not defeated, man. We're going to come back to work and put all our energy and focus into Cincinnati, go win a game.
Bijan Robinson in the pass game, how problematic is that?
Yeah, I think we had some chances to, there were some one-on-ones there. He had some chances to get it down a little quicker. He's a good player, man. He hasn't gotten really bottled up all year. I thought the one run kicked out the backside. We had a pressure on. We got to do a better job of making sure that we keep the ball on our inside pad. But he's a tough player. The one drive that I was down about, he touched it 3 times and they scored. He had like the explosive, maybe 2 explosives and scored. That was a quick drive there. He's a tough player. He's a good player.
And against Kyle Pitts, you saw Will Johnson against him. Obviously, Denzel Burke, Garrett Williams before he left. So it's sort of a variety of guys you put on their tight end at times, or was that just a basis of the zone coverage?
No, it's how they deploy him. So we knew everybody was going to end up being on him because they move him around the formation pretty good. So, he had a couple third down catches there, which I thought led to some points, which we got to get off the field a little better on third down. But he's a good player too.
Darius Robinson, we called his name quite a bit. He was in on both of the fourth down stops in the fourth quarter. What did you see out of 56 today?
Yeah, I thought he played violent. I thought he played fast, played with good technique, made some plays. He was a playmaker out there. He was disruptive today.
Will Johnson, Denzel Burke, Cody Simon. Are some of the rookies starting to kind of come into form here late going?
Yeah, I thought Will had a good day. It seemed like when it was unfortunate too. He had the third down stop, but we jumped offside. I thought he played well. He got up, challenged guys. They threw a couple go balls to him. He knocked them down. Same thing with Denzel. Those guys are playing well.
And Walter Nolan, late second quarter, we called his name on 3 straight plays. How tough was it to see his injury?
Yeah, it's tough, man. We had Sweaty go out of the game, Garrett go out of the game, Walt go out of the game. It's just you gotta reset, and people got to step up and do their job. But obviously they just asked me about immediate. How bad do you feel? Obviously, any injury you feel bad. You know what I mean? But that's you got to keep playing.
How tough is it to not look at the fact you lead the league in injuries and not, do you have to account for that in a locker room? Do you have to sort of monitor guys and their mental state considering?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it with our guys. That's kind of our health bucket. Injuries happen, you know what I mean? We've gotten nicked, a good amount this year. But other guys, I'm proud of the guys that went in there and stepped up and battled, man.
Last question. You talked about complimentary football. You saw some of that, especially earlier, the first quarter interception and then the touchdown throw to Michael Wilson, which, by the way, I mean, how impressive was that? You obviously saw it in the big board and then threw the red flag, right?
Yeah, it was a good job for him to come down with that and catch that. That was awesome.
Okay. Coach, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Happy holidays.
There you go. Jonathan Gannon, guys.
All right. Thank you, Paul. All right, AQ, last thoughts here with 2 games left, trying to end 2025 on a positive note. $1 million question. To get that first win since the Dallas Monday night game in early November, what's it going to take?
Well, you're going to have to come out, and you're probably going to be in a shootout because it looks like Joe Burrow might have refound his love for football today because last week the national media said he hated football. This week he puts up 40 points, throws 4 touchdowns. So, I think the big thing is they just got to go on the road, and they're going to have to weather the storm early. They're going to have to find a way to run the football like they did a little bit today, keep that going, but you got to get the ball in Michael Wilson, Trey McBride, and Marvin Harrison's hands.
All right. Thanks to our 3 guys that will not be on the road with us, but we've appreciated them throughout the entire season. Once again, Miguel Reese, our spotter, Kurt Zacher, our statistician, Walt Ellis and Jason Ellis are engineers. Executive producers Jim Omahundro, associate producer Cody Fincher. I guess Cody won't be there either. Thanks to Cody for all his hard work during the season. Technical director Ali Narini and studio coordinator Jamal Gumo. Craig Grialou and Frank Sanders up next with Cardinal Talk. The vice president of content, creative, and brand is Surf Melendez. For A.Q. Shipley, Paul Calvisi, Dave Pasch, saying so long from State Farm Stadium for the last time in 2025, and unfortunately it's a defeat at the hands of the Falcons, 26-19 on the Cardinals Radio Network.